So I mentioned earlier about the lightness of touch. What I mean by that is, so far we've been developing, up until today, we've been developing a lot of power, a powerful controlled strike. Just trying to stay relaxed but using as much power as we can. But we don't have to hit the drum as hard as that. We can still use the same movement, but we can hit the drum lighter. So if I just demonstrate, I'm going to go from a powerful strike to a gentler strike, but the movement should stay the same. Now sometimes I'm going to miss because I'm really trying to find that edge. So we'll start off powerful. This is what we've been used to. And then I'm going to back off that power. There you go, I missed. Right, so that demonstrates that we can still use the same amount of movement, but we're not hitting the drum as hard. And what's happening is we're trying to move the position of where the stick changes direction. So the powerful strike, we're really burying the stick into the head to get a really powerful strike. But the light strike, we're literally trying to change direction on the surface of the head. So we're just touching it. We're just scratching it or tickling it, if you like, just to get a tiny amount of sound. Now we wouldn't normally want to play jazz in that fashion. We don't want to play off the drums just for the sake of it. So the jazz technique is obviously going to be much smaller, but it's a similar principle. Rather than burying the stick into the drum and really deflecting that drum head, we're just lightly touching the surface. And so whatever stick height we use, whether it be tiny like we've been using and developing today, or whether it be a bit more comfortable, so we might say sort of 3 to 4 inches is a comfortable height. Now do we want to make that condensed, or do we want to make it nice and light? And how can we make it lighter? If we clench the hand, it tends to make it heavier. If we loosen the hand, it helps to make it nice and light. And we're also thinking, I suppose, about getting the drumstick off the drum head. Whereas we do think about it in the open strike, about getting it on off the drum, but we're also thinking about getting it into the drum. In this technique, we're really thinking about getting the stick off the drum every time, which helps to make it much lighter, a lighter touch. So, and another way, I mean, if we could really open the hands if we wanted to make it really light, maybe this is a little bit exaggerated, but it really helps to take the weight off the stick. And also, if we use the arms, the arm muscles are obviously much more powerful, much stronger, much bigger, so they can hold more weight and just allow the stick to touch. So the weight of the arm is held off the drum with the arm muscles, rather than trying to control this light touch with the wrist only. Trying to find the lightest touch you possibly can in order to play really quietly. In jazz settings, sometimes very often the drums are literally whispering, which is actually really impressive when you're used to playing very, very loud. So a good example of this light touch is demonstrated by the drummer Gene Krupa, who tended to play with lots of arm movement, which looked very impressive when he did it. But what's more impressive to me is that he wasn't overpowering his band. And it wasn't because his drums were old, you know, back then they had quieter drums or something. It's purely because the way he's touching the drum. So if you're playing like that, you might be forgiven for thinking that you're going to be beating the drum very hard because of the movement of the stick. To get the stick down onto the drum, you might be forgiven for thinking that it's going to be whacking the drum really hard, but actually you can hit the drum very lightly, even though you're moving your arms so much. I know it looks pretty ridiculous when I do it, but when he did it, it looked very impressive. So the same principles are happening here, in that we're not whacking the drum. We're just, even though there's a lot of movement, we're just touching the surface of the drum lightly. It's the change of direction. The point of the change of direction is just on top of the head rather than being buried into the head. It's just scratching the surface rather than deflecting the drum head with a powerful strike, burying it into the drum. So those are a few things for you to think about in terms of how hard we're hitting the drum. Is it necessary to hit it that hard? Can we hit it lighter? If we hit it lighter, then we're going to stay more relaxed, and it's going to take longer before we get tired and our muscles tense up. So yeah, so those are some things to think about in terms of how to play quietly. We can either reduce our stick heights right down to the minimum, or we can just touch the drums lighter, depending on the circumstances. The more options we have, the better we'll be. The more we'll be able to adapt to different situations. And this is the last lesson for a while. But what we've learnt so far should hopefully have given you a good basic level of technique which will serve you well in most acoustic situations. So if you wanted to join an orchestra or a concert band or a brass band, then the things that we've learned should be a really good starting place. Also, these techniques will transfer to the drum kit, but there will be more to learn on the drum kit, especially coordination. And before I go, I just wanted to recommend this book, Stick Control by George Lawrence Stone. If you're really serious about developing your drumming further, then this is a good place to continue. It's going to give you a combination of rhythmic patterns. So there's single strokes, double strokes, there's rolls, triplets, flams, all sorts of different rhythmic patterns. And it's going to really free up your hands to enable you to play pretty much any combination of sticking. If you use the book as it directs, then you're basically going to program yourself to recognize various different rhythmic features. And you'll be able to play these with very little thought processes, because you will have developed muscle memory and your hands will instinctively know what to play. Also, while you're going through these exercises, you can use them to ensure that your hands are creating a balanced, even and consistent sound. It really is an excellent book which will take your drumming onto a whole new level. So hopefully I will be back in the future to do some more lessons and maybe focus on some rudiments. And so if you've made it this far through all these lessons, then I'd like to thank you for your patience with me in terms of my hesitations, my ponderings, and my overall playing standard, which is not really up to that of other people that have done educational drumming videos. But at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get better. So I'm going to go away and do lots of practice, and hopefully I'll be ready for next time. Thank you.